Joining us now is international attorney Douglas McNabb, who knows what the procedure would be and how to go about doing this kind of thing. Douglas, thank you for coming on, sir.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you, Steve.
My pleasure. Okay, so tell us, if the U.S. wanted to go after him, would they need a criminal indictment first? Would they? How would they proceed? Let's say he's in a country that has an extradition treaty with us.
Now, whether he's in a country where we have an extradition treaty or not, the U.S. government has to bring charges against him. And they could do that either by way of an indictment that would be returned by a federal grand jury, or there is another way, and that's called a criminal complaint, where there's an affidavit signed by a federal agent. That is also one way in which one can be charged by the U.S. government. But whether it's a criminal complaint or an indictment, there must be a charge. And from that charge, then the U.S. government would seek an arrest warrant. They would ask a United States federal magistrate judge to seal that charge so that it's not made a matter of public record. And then the U.S. is going to do two things. One is that if they think he's in Hong Kong, they're going to, either through diplomatic or law enforcement channels, send over a provisional arrest warrant request. That is a temporary arrest warrant that's provided for in the treaty, asking that the Hong Kong authorities detain Mr. Snowden for up to 60 days. That gives the U.S. government then time to file a petition for extradition, seeking to have him extradited from Hong Kong to the U.S. Once he's in those extradition proceedings, Steve, he then can either waive extradition and agree to be returned to the U.S. to stand trial. I don't know that we're going to see that. Or he could challenge it. He could fight it. So that's one way. And then the second thing I think that the U.S. government would do is that they would, Interpol in D.C. would then go to Interpol in Lyon, France, and request Lyon to send out an all-points bulletin. It is a red notice that is sent out on international fugitives, and it's sent to 190 member countries, and it says, look, there are charges out of the U.S. If you find this guy, arrest him with a view to placing him in extradition proceedings. If Mr. Snowden is aware of what Interpol is and the red notices are, and if he's in Hong Kong, he may know he can't leave Hong Kong for fear of being arrested. So it landlocks, and so it has that added advantage for the U.S. government as well.
What is the usual success rate, timetable for something like this? Say we're going through Interpol.
Interpol red notices can be done very quickly. I mean, within an hour at the most, if
Right.
they really want to get that notice out quickly. In terms of criminal complaint, a charge, you don't have to constitute a federal grand jury. It would be the affidavit prepared by a federal agent with the assistance of a federal prosecutor. They walk into the office of the United States federal magistrate judge and say, we want an arrest warrant. The federal magistrate judge will review the affidavit, make sure that it's compliant with the law, sign it. The prosecutor then says, Judge, please make this sealed. I want to seal this. The judge will say, okay, and boom, it's done.
Now, let me ask you this, and we're talking to Douglas McNabb, international attorney here on the Steve Malzberg Show. If he's in China, does that present any kind of problem? If he is in mainland China somewhere?
Well, we don't have an extradition treaty. The
Right.
U.S. does not have an extradition treaty with China. Do Hong Kong, but not China. And so we can't seek to have him extradited following the procedure that I just laid out for you from China. Now, that's not to say that China or Russia or some other country of which we don't have an extradition treaty with, that's not to say that they couldn't voluntarily turn him over if they wanted to do that. If he's in Hong Kong, listen, rather than placing him in extradition proceedings and all of that, all Hong Kong has to do if they wanted to do this is just revoke his visa. He's probably there on a tourist visa. Revoke his visa. He's in the country illegally. Now they're going to deport him, and they can shoot him back to Hawaii pretty quickly, I would imagine, if they wanted to do that. Hawaii, because he came from Hawaii on his way to Hong Kong.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Well, it was very educational, Douglas. I appreciate your time, sir. We'll call on you again.